There is a mind shift. There's a mindset.
Easy for you to say. He's only got one name, sir.
Maybe we should say to our millions of listeners.
Now, you could say that some don't want to.
So I think we're going down the path
Of failing, and that's the word.
showing off. So, Steve, the rest is tech. Where are we today?
We're at Essendon Country Club, a club I've known for a number of years. It's where I play golf, but it's got tremendously hospitable, and I just want to say thank you to Paul Densham and the team for allowing us to use the facilities and setting them up for us.
So this is coaching internal teams.
Yes, coaching, developing and leading internal teams.
Yeah, mentoring is the other word.
Mentoring is the other word. It's always been my observation that when you have a specialism inside a business which isn't the line of business of that business, the people in that specialism don't always get the best support for their career and their learning and their growth.
So when we talk about these things, we're not really talking about coaching or mentoring their technical ability, are we?
Not at all.
We're talking more about coaching, mentoring their business capability. And their stakeholder engagement, that sort of personal...
The personal skills which you get...
which are often lacking with IT people as a rule.
There's a statistic. We like a statistic.
We do like a statistic.
Of the 100 listed companies and the next tier, the 250, only 7% of those exec boards have a technologist at the exec level. Now, you've got to ask, what is wrong with a tech career path where that's the truth?
Yes.
Because there's no board that does not do disaster recovery, business process, digital planning.
Well, there's no modern company that can survive without technology as a major part of their business.
Exactly. And yet, those technologies do not get to the higher echelons in the business. Now, you could say that some don't want to.
Yeah.
Because that's the same in any business, in any skill silo, for want of a better term.
Yes.
That's the same. But some do, and they just don't get there. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think their personal skill set holds them back.
Yeah.
And it's the soft skills.
Yes.
And my belief of why that holds them back is because how the industry has changed.
Yeah.
So over the last 10 to 15 years, the tech industry, as opposed to, has been such an exciting place. The downside of that is a little bit fragmented.
Yeah.
So the big machines, as I used to call them, the big machines of leadership training, soft skill training in tech business, they're not there anymore. So even companies that we consider very big in a tech sense don't always have that many employees.
No, they don't. No.
So they're not investing across the piece.
And there's also a sort of lack of skill set in the people above them, where they've seen technology as a drain, a cost, whereas there is a mind shift. There's a mindset.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, very easy for me to say. There's a mind shift now where businesses are waking up to the fact that technology can drive their profit and help them increase profit rather than just being a drain and a cost centre.
Absolutely. So whilst technologies are failing, and that's the word, failing to break through to executive level, there are more technologists now at probably operating board level than there used to be. Because, as you know, Simon, it was very common for a long time for the technology function to sit under the FD.
Yes.
Purely because he or she could count.
Yeah.
Which to me doesn't seem the best rationale on the planet. But they sat there. So that capped a technology's career.
Well, also, I think they sat there because, as I said, technology was seen as a big financial drain on the business.
Yeah.
Put an accountant in charge of it to put a lid on those costs.
Yeah, and it's in the same vein as you hear about accountants running car companies. It was the same principle. Now, there's absolutely a board, and I think about the Belbin model, and the Belbin model recognised that you need a balanced team to achieve the ultimate performance in any team. So it just goes back really to my view that if that's the case and you need a balanced team, exec teams and operational teams at every level should have a technologist in them.
Yeah, I agree. So actually going back to your model, maybe we should say to our millions of listeners, if you subscribe, like, or put in the comments, if you want us to talk about that specific model, we'll do that in a future edition. And we can move on.
Been directed here. So if you have this very skilled person, they tend to be loyal. They work hard. Technologists know that their role is not 9 to 5 generally, but they get frustrated.
Yes.
They get frustrated because I've seen it in appraisal interviews where I've been privy to, because I've been invited in as someone who's providing a service to that business. You can just look through the notes or talk to the team, and you realise that no one's putting a structured career plan around that person.
Yep.
Now, everyone wants to feel valued. That's not a tech thing.
No.
That's not a tech thing. That's just good leadership. So where can we help as fractional CIOs? Well, we can provide an experienced and guided plan and journey for those people.
Yeah, and I think, I agree. So we can mentor those people, give them a career path, but also I think we can help them, and you might come on to this, but in elevating the whole technology function within a business, making it become more visible and giving a greater input to the business, so elevating the status of the whole team.
Yes, absolutely. So that I could put the other hat on, because as you know, Simon, I'm a sales director who can be a technologist,
yes.
So I mix between the two. As a global sales director, you say sell the sizzle.
Yes.
So the challenge you have with mentoring and coaching technologists, they think they have a belief system that their entire career success will be based on actually what happened.
Yes.
Now that's a good proportion of it, but it's not everything.
No.
So there is there's a limiting belief, as they call it, in technologists, that I just have to do the very best job I can, and someone will come along and find me.
So I think we're going down the path, and which is something I talk not just about technology, but talk to other businesses about. You might do the best outcome, but how is that perceived? If the rest of the business doesn't perceive that as the best outcome,
absolutely,
then it's not the best outcome.
It's not the best outcome.
So reality is perception. In other words, reality is what people perceive as happened, not what actually happened.
Exactly.
Yes.
So we do have the challenge in technology, and one of the reasons I love the industry, there are some fairly hard and fast outcomes. You know, at the end of the day, the mail system's down,
Yes.
and it needs to get back up again. But how it got back up again is that perception.
Yes.
Did the internal team make sure there was a backup? Did the internal team talk to the VIPs in the business to say, I have a way of just getting your emails for now? So there's a perception around any incident, and that perception is happening on a daily basis. The other thing that I think doesn't always happen is internal teams don't communicate when things are going okay.
Indeed, yeah.
Because then the argument is, as long as nothing's going wrong, I'll keep my head down.
Yeah, you have to communicate the good news as well as
the good news and bad news. The other thing to communicate is, in any business, you alluded to this with CFOs and budgets, a company has chosen an IT strategy within a budget.
Yes.
So the technological team, the tech team, have to operate within that budget. There is absolutely no shame and nothing wrong going, that's the service we chose.
Yeah, actually, you've just made me think of a point that we probably weren't going to talk about, but I think it's relevant to service it. So a business has a strategy that's probably 3-5 years long. That's a very long time in technology world. So although a business has a technology strategy to meet the business strategy, actually technology is moving at such a pace that technology strategy has to be refreshed probably more frequently than the business strategy, because you can get more value for the money you've allocated just with new technology that's coming along.
Absolutely. And so that's a review process that is iterative.
Yes.
I think I said that better than the other word you did, didn't I? Did that work?
That came out, yeah.
It came out, actually. I won't be able to do it again. Iterative. So it's an iterative process. So then I go back.
Showing off.
I haven't showed off much at all yet. Then I go back to the quality of people you should be having in your business.
Yes.
Because that's where, and this is going to overlap to a previous podcast, the basic functions, perhaps consider outsourcing those.
Yes.
So the people you employ directly have to be agile and critical thinkers.
Yeah.
They need to be bringing to the board, this is the latest technology.
Yeah, so when you talk about critical thinkers, I agree totally, and I always try and encourage my teams to ask why.
Yes, it's a great question.
It is.
Yeah.
Why are we doing that?
Yeah.
And the one thing that always frustrates me is when people say, well, we've always done it that way.
We don't like that one.
And that's not critical thinking. That's not asking why. Yeah. That's not looking at everything they do and saying, why am I doing this?
Yes.
Can I do it more efficiently?
Well, I'm going to give you something that you're going to use again now.
Okay.
It's the antithesis and why you shouldn't do. We've always done this. Years ago, 2 monkeys in a cage.
Yeah.
They go to reach for a banana and someone hoses them down. So they go, I don't want that banana. I want that banana. A couple of weeks go by. They take one monkey out and put another monkey in. Before the second monkey reaches it, the other one goes, don't go for that.
Yeah.
They changed the first monkey out. So by the time there's 2 monkeys in the cage that were never hosed down, as soon as someone gets hosed out, they don't do that. And that's the absolute how it's always done like this happens.
Yeah.
Because when you talk about things in companies, the sort of size company we deal with, they're unlikely to be within a year or 2 year startup. They've got some history.
Yes.
So the people who are saying we've always done it like this weren't there when it was done like that.
Yeah, and
they're just doing it on roads. They're just on autopilot.
So one company they said, you asked them why you do it that way. He said, we do it because Dave said it was the best way. Okay, I said, great, let's go and talk to Dave. Yeah. Oh no, he left 3 years ago.
That's my point. Dave's gone out for another banana.
Yeah.
Dave's gone. That's exactly my point. Dave's gone.
Yeah.
So every company should be asking themselves why.
Yes.
They should be zero budgeting to some extent. On all their budgets,
yeah.
But they should be certainly within a tech budget. They should be zero budgeting and see what's adding value to the company, what's not, and what's out there. Now, the what's out there, I think we can be really helpful there.
Yes,
because again, we operate amongst a community of experienced CIOs and CTOs. There's plenty of us. We've all been very experienced. You know, we've been working in the role within larger companies. But we've also ran our own company.
Well, I've got a real life example right now. So I'm working with a couple of companies down in Hampshire, and they've got some existing systems, and I'm taking them through a total review of their processes and systems to support that. And they've suggested a number of systems that they would like to be included, that they know about, that they're currently using. We've just finished the shortlisting and the demos of the shortlisting, and the one company that's the leader is not the one company that they suggested. It was the one company that I introduced a number of companies. Yeah. One of many companies I introduced, but the one that has come out as their choice, as the favoured across both companies, because they're the same parent company, is a company that they didn't introduce. So straight away, there's value that we have brought to the table by being involved.
Tremendous value. But the other piece of value you bring to a company, and I was just thinking of that as you were speaking, Simon, if you're working with the senior tech leader in that business, you're showing them how to run a professional RFP and tender process. Not many people have done it.
True.
It's like, this is the incumbent, and I'm just going to Google someone and we get them as well.
Well, yeah, so let's go off on a tangent on that one. So these same two companies, they had Salesforce, probably the world leader CRM system, in one of the companies, universally hated, not because the technology is bad, because the technology is good, but the way it was implemented, and no one was involved.
So if there's no local champions, doomed to failure.
So my standard processing, and then when they first invited me to get involved, I said, right, I don't want the senior managers or the general managers and the owner involved in this. We're going to have a team of advocates, and there's about 20 advocates across both businesses. And I said, they are the people. They came up with the requirements, what we're addressing. They've been in the selection process, and they have selected the system, or we've still got to agree commercial terms. But that's worked for me time and time again, because it's now not our system, it's now not the company system, it's their system. They've selected it.
I did a project 2 years ago where it was a £100 million business supplying fruit to all the big supermarkets, part of a much bigger business. So it was a big corporation, privately owned, and this business was given an objective and a KPI. They needed to be off the core system. The core system had been going for 25 years, had been grown up man, woman, boy and girl. Bit of a task. I went through exactly the same process. I found the market leaders in that industry, but I also said I want champions in all the offices.
Yeah.
And they were part of selection, but more importantly, they were part of the implementation.
Yes.
So come go live day, no one can say I didn't see that.
No.
Because you were actually part of the workshop a year ago when that was.
But they're also forcing, if you like, the right word is forcing, or advocating the use of the system on their colleagues, because they're invested.
And actually, this conversation has gone everywhere, like our conversations.
Yeah, always do.
Yeah, always do. But there's a mentoring element, because you're then exposing people who are not necessarily strictly in a tech silo to a big project implementation.
Yeah.
And I happen to know that one of those people has now taken a career up in tech.
Right.
Because they enjoyed it so much.
Yeah.
They got project management qualifications because they've seen a good project go live and think, this is good. I want to do this for a living.
Yeah.
So that was almost the most gratifying output for me, that someone believed the project was that good and it worked. But I think back to your point, it stopped a lot of the noises off stage, as it were.
Yeah.
When there's some, and they have to be powerful voices sometimes.
So our mentoring is showing what good looks like.
What good looks like, and what good looks like around the tech.
Yes.
Because we've both been talking about a really good RFP process, a good tender process, but it's not the tech per se, it's the process.
Yes.
Which in any fair-sized company, and this should please the CFO, if you do it properly and you do it right, you buy well.
And you get a good ROI, return on investment.
Of course you do. And you do some of the basics, like checking whether that company been around in 5 years, checking some of the references out properly. It makes a big difference.
Yes.
And that's important to mid-sized businesses who are dealing with large corporations, because now when that mid-sized business is dealing with a large corporation on an RFP it's doing for its line of business, the questions will be asked about all the systems in the business and how did you get there? Do they conform to standards?
Yep.
So you're actually building value into the business all the way up.
Well, and so on that point, mid-sized businesses can't afford to get it wrong. They can't afford to get halfway through a project and throw it away because they got it wrong. So getting it right from the very beginning and making sure the money they're spending is well spent.
That is such a good point. We get lost a little bit because I think all of us in BTL have done some big projects. Yeah. And we've been in meetings where some fairly eye-watering sums
indeed
have been, and the project's been stopped. A mid-sized business can't afford that.
No.
But that's why you have to build it on the right foundation, which is, I on that project, there was one supplier who didn't get through the front door, because I found that two of their lead technologists were leaving.
Yeah. So, on that point about can't afford to get it wrong, I was talking to someone actually just this morning, and we were talking about budgets. And I said, often we're asked, what's the biggest budget you've managed? And I say, well, 160 million, whatever.
Yeah.
I said, but that's not the question you should be asking. The question you should be asking is, what's the smallest budget you've managed? Because if you're 10 grand overspent in 160 million, that's just noise. 10 grand overspent in a £2 million budget, that's a significant difference.
Thing. I love parallels in all industries.
Yeah.
That's the same in the film industry.
Yeah.
If you're doing a £2 million project and you've got to throw a few more shooting days in, not a big deal.
No.
If you're doing a brand activation, it's 200,000, and you get it wrong on a day, you don't get a shot, you can't go back.
No.
So no one gets the product.
Indeed.
So that to me, that's a great analogy, because it's not how big the budget is. It's percentage, and it's the smallest ones you've done successfully.
Yes.
But they need, the other thing I think that I just throw into this mix, they need 100% executive backing.
Yes. But that's where we come in, isn't it, with our mentoring and our stakeholder management and experience. So we can, as I talked about earlier, we can elevate the status of the tech team because we've been there and done it, and we know how to talk and engage with the senior leaders in the business, and we can drag kicking and screaming the rest of the IT team, or those that want, because they can see what good looks like and how to do that for the future.
And they actually see us talking to execs that sometimes they have maybe a bit more of a fractured relationship with, and sometimes say some fairly bad news.
Yes.
Because, let's be real, because we're real with VTL, not all those projects went live on the day we said they go live.
No.
And sometimes you've got to look the board in the eye and go, this has just come out of the woodwork. This is what we're doing to fix it.
Which, actually, this is a phrase that I learned recently, and we've talked about it in a previous podcast. Have you heard the phrase, a watermelon report? Have you ever come across that phrase?
I haven't, no.
Interesting phrase. I love now I've heard it. So a watermelon is green on the outside and it's red on the inside. So, standard reports, all green, everything's lovely, and then you dig into it and it's red. And that's the board just want to hear good news.
Good news.
But they don't really. Everyone thinks the board just want to hear good news. They want to hear the truth.
They want to hear the truth, and they want to hear what you're doing about the truth.
Yes.
I think. So the problem, sometimes internal teams, they don't have the rectification plan when they tell the truth.
Yes.
The board wants to hear, how much is the truth going to cost me?
And that's where the rest is tech, where we've often been successful, is because we work on a fractional basis across a number of companies. We're not afraid to tell the board the truth.
Yes.
But we don't just tell them the truth, and we say, and by the way, this is what we need to do to fix it, to bring to your point. They don't just want to know, oh, this is the problem. And they go, yes, so what? This is the problem, but don't worry. Or even better, this was the problem, and this is already in plan.
And then the date said we're going to make this work. I have a phrase, and I'm going to mention by name a gentleman called Tim York, and he was the COO of Equity Insurance.
Right.
And I was the CIO reporting to him on an interim basis. And he had a line, which is the watermelon, but just said out loud, he said, everything's fine until it's not.
Yeah.
So boards should be asking about the not about the fine, especially if it's a board meeting on a Friday afternoon and everyone wants to go home. You've got to be asking what's not.
Yes.
And you've got to be hard on that because there'll be a lot of data, there'll be a lot of graphs, there'll be a lot of red, amber, green flying around.
Yeah. And
most of it will be amber and green.
Yes.
So the board has to be super critical and go, oh, where's the knots, where's the red?
But we've talked about this before. Often the boards probably don't have the knowledge. So a CEO, who's our standard client that we report directly to, often can do every part of the business. They can do the marketing, the sales, they know the finance inside out. The one area that they're never comfortable with is the tech.
Yeah.
Very rarely are they comfortable with the tech. And that's where we can add great value. That's why, they're comfortable with all that, and then they need someone like the rest is tech someone that they can trust to give them the truth.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's part of our coaching and mentoring as well.
It is.
So imagine, we're at different levels within a business. We're coaching and mentoring the execs as well.
Yes.
These are the questions you need to ask.
Yeah.
These are the things, saying to the tech team, these are the wins and successes and challenges you need to promote and to talk about. And saying to the exec team, these are questions you need to ask.
Yeah, so mentoring the tech team or coaching, not the tech team, sorry, the board. I've been with companies where early on it's obvious they don't have a business continuity plan.
Yes.
Or they do, and they say, oh, well, that's all right. If IT falls over, they've got a backup. That's not business continuity.
That's not business continuity.
If IT's not available, how's the business continuing to run? So the little things like that, but they surface and they help the board understand things.
We're going back to our subject about mentoring. Coaching, leadership development. I see us helping in all those areas. So those skill sets, but more importantly, those attitudes are embedded in the client's business.
Yes.
And if they are embedded, we're into that teaching someone the fish and not giving them the fish.
Indeed.
Because they can do it again. And that's why I was keen to say, taking a whole board, the exec and tech team, through a structured RFP process is probably quite an eye-opener.
Yes.
For some people. The stages you have to go through. You just mentioned the demos you have to go through.
Yeah.
The due diligence you have to go through. The references you have to take up.
Yeah. So let's just explain. So everyone probably heard it, but just for those that haven't, when you say talk about them to fish rather than feed them.
Yes.
So if you teach someone how to fish, they can feed themselves forever.
Yes.
If you give someone a fish, that's just one meal.
And then they need us to come back. The rest is tech is about teaching people to fish.
Indeed. Yeah, so they can feed themselves, look after themselves.
There would be other challenges they need us for.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't be doing our job and we wouldn't be as professional as we are if we left a gap in the skill set of something we've come in to do.
Well, I think a key purpose for us is that we make ourselves dispensable.
Yes.
Yep. Our job, we feel we've succeeded when we're no longer needed.
Absolutely.